Alrighty, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me, Melina. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Beautiful. For all those who don't know, this is the Fully Managed podcast. We're gonna get right into it today with a game. So, Melina, I thought this was a perfect game for you. I kind of created it around you because I thought this would be fun for you.
Whoa, so amazing.
Creating games are my favorite part of the podcast, so don't tell anyone else about that. No, they're all gonna hear it. Okay, so this game is called In This Economy. And so the premise of the game is, so your whole brand is founded upon behavioral economics. I thought this would be a great game of, I'd like to run some things by you that used to be popular in the US and get your opinion on if they came back today, if they'd be successful. Does that
All
sound
right.
fun?
Yes, let's try
Okay,
it.
beautiful. Okay. If you don't know what any of these are, it's okay too. I think some of them are like things that just popped into my head that I thought
Obscure. All right, cool.
Okay. Moon shoes.
Oh my
Remember those?
gosh. I
Okay, they got
remember moon shoes from, okay, so whether or not it's in like economy or otherwise, I guess though it's because when I was a kid, I feel like we were told moon shoes must cost, $500 a pair or something. They were probably $30.
yeah.
But we definitely, I never got them. I can say concretely my children would love moon shoes, and I bet the whole world would as well. So moon shoes for the win. Like, bring them back. The kids would want them.
Heck yeah. I think my parents told me that they were dangerous and that I couldn't have them because I'd break something, which
Yeah,
is maybe fair,
probably
but
true.
also
But in a world of
underreported.
the Heelys or, and all
Mhm.
those things that are out now, like I feel like it's better that you have a cradle around your whole foot with that the shoe is inside. But yeah, my 3-year-old, he is not rambunctious, but he tends to break bones. And so he wouldn't be able to have them for sure. But we'd let the older kids have them.
I had speaking of Heelys, I had a friend that cartoon style slipped in their cafeteria and cracked their head open because of Heelys. It's funny
No.
because I know her now and she's alive. But it's kind of scary actually.
It is not. Yeah, not acceptable. That's yeah. I am
They
the
banned them in
very over.
schools.
Yep, I'm a very overprotective parent as that comes anyway. So my children will live in bubbles, but I know that other children would like moon shoes.
The marketer in you is like,
Yeah,
be
yeah,
good. Okay, Blockbuster. Not technically a product, but
yeah. No, but so now that streaming is a thing, we clearly don't have Blockbuster in the like overly like one on every corner sort of approach, which of course there weren't that many, right? But every city had at least one, right? That they were all over the place. And that was you go do, I remember as a kid and it was like Friday night we get to go to Blockbuster and we want to get there early to try to get the good movie before we have to get something old again, whatever. And so I think that now that you can stream, you don't need that in the same way. However, I do think it's so interesting that there could be like if you build it around the experience of being able to have a special night that's a little bit nostalgic and you get to go pick something together and you get the popcorn. Like I would have it set up that you have some version of a membership and you get to go pick your movie and maybe they pop the popcorn there for you. That's part of it. And you get the bucket like you were going to go to a movie, but you get to either bring it home and snuggle up, or they maybe have a, kind of like they do the, karaoke with this one room, like you get your own individual karaoke
yeah.
room. You could maybe have where you get to go stream your own movie as a family or before the sleepover or whatever, they're on site with popcorn and candy or something. I think there could be a revamped real life sort of experience that comes around something like a Blockbuster that could work, but you wouldn't have as many. And I think just to note even that I find it fascinating that albums that come out now have records
They
that
have
you can get,
yeah.
like the record from the new
Huh?
Taylor Swift and like why? Like, why is that even a thing that anyone makes? But people wanna go get the record, of
Vintage.
them. So, yep, but it's not vintage, right? It's
Yeah,
brand
it's not.
new.
It's
They
brand new,
just
but it's the feel of
right?
vintage. People
Yeah.
love that.
Right. So, with that, I think that there is a market in a different way.
I definitely agree. I think that if you sold the experience, I think it would be so successful. If anything, I wish that they would do that. I also think that physical media is coming back a little
Right.
bit because I
Yeah.
think people started to get concerned with some of their favorite things aren't attached to a streaming service, so they're gone forever. Like they're in this weird limbo. And I think
Yeah.
that people are starting to be concerned with that because there's some shows that from when I was a kid, and I was not a kid that long ago, that are not available anywhere. Like I can't find them anywhere because they're in like this weird domain space that I don't understand the legality of it, but I can't get my favorite things and I'm upset about
Right.
it.
Not okay.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that that would be selling the experience, I think would be so wonderful. People love that vintage feeling, even though Blockbuster was around like less than 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. Nostalgia. That's as we get older. I remember the first where it's like seeing that a show that I liked when I was a kid that's now on Nick at Night, which like I don't know if Nick at Night is
Again,
still a thing, right? But like when I was a kid, Nick at Night was like Bewitched, right? I mean, super
again, it
old
was yeah.
stuff. And so, to see that Sabrina the Teenage Witch was on that 10 years ago, you go, "Wait, what? Like, that's
10
not
years
okay."
ago. I know, to see that they made another Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Not
They
cool.
rebooted it. Not cool at all. I hate when they do that. Like
Yep.
even the I did not grow up in the 60s or 70s, but I'm mad that they're doing the Beatles thing. Because I
What
listened to the
Beatles
Beatles as a kid.
thing? Who's
They're
ruining the Beatles?
they're they're making a what is it called? Always forget what it's called, but they're making a show about the Beatles, and it's so funny because they have heartthrobs that are actors now that are going to play the Beatles, and I'm like, I understand that because they were heartthrobs at their time, even though now I think debatably all of us would think that they were not attractive, like in this day and age. That's not, maybe that's rude, but they have like Barry Keoghan from things that I can't remember, but you might know him. The guy in the bear that I can't remember, Lip from
Oh,
Shameless. I can't remember anyone's names. I can only make references.
and that other guy,
The other
and
guy
then
that's
there's
the
this
other,
guy, they're
but they're all like attractive for us now, or the select group of people. It doesn't really, it depends on your taste, but they're not. They don't look like the Beatles. Like they don't. They don't. They're
they're
not. They
just
don't
guys.
resonate. Just
So,
guys.
yeah, yeah, interesting.
But
Yeah.
I don't love that because I grew up with the Beatles, even though I didn't grow up like them actively touring because two of them I think were dead by the time I was listening to the Beatles. But um it was a nostalgic thing for me to like listen to them now. It's nostalgic because I listened to them as a kid because it was around in the house because my parents listened to them at the time that they were actually a band.
Yeah.
And it's I'm upset because maybe I should not be upset and gatekeepy, but I think that when things become popular in the mainstream that used to be nostalgic, it's almost like beating it to a pulp in the marketing world.
Right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I will say, like, kindred spirits in the Beatles world. It feels weird to like pick up and turn my laptop around to show the thing. But like, so I have though. Let's see if we see him. You guys see?
Yes.
Okay, so that is Lego of Paul McCartney. It's a Lego, yes. And so I got to build it, the Lego there. And you could pick which of the cover, like you can do, John, Paul, George, or Ringo if you want. And technically you can take it apart and build the next one if you want, but like, come on, I'm not taking that apart. But Paul is definitely my favorite of the Beatles, and I have seen him in concert. And I'm a big Beatles fan. So
Well, maybe you
I'm
might
with
like
you.
the
Or maybe they'll ruin it, right? It's like the
maybe you
reboot
might
of Harry
hate it.
Potter that's happening already. Like, how are you redoing Harry Potter already?
I know. I do. Reboots sometimes make me happy if I wasn't fulfilled with them in the first place, if
I
that makes
know, but
sense.
it's like
But
bow on it, right? It was so perfect.
if it
You
was
can't
perfect, don't ruin it.
leave it.
You don't need to, you can stop.
Agreed.
Okay, well, we have had a wonderful conversation so far, but this is about you and not about the Beatles. So I want to get into talking about the Brainy business. I think this is really cool and an interesting concept that I haven't really gotten to delve into. So, and the foundation of it behind behavioral economics, I think, is something that's so cool because I love psychology in the business world. And I think it's
Mm.
something that should be talked about more and should be actively acknowledged because it's something that's so present. Like, people, understanding people is how you're successful in this kind of world. So, one, I would love to learn what inspired you to establish this business. Also introduce yourself, tell us what you're doing today. And what was your kind of, did you have a vision for this business when you started it? Or if you did, what was it? Or what did it kind of become in the process?
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Melina, and in addition to loving the Beatles and moon shoes, apparently, who knew? I am, yeah, I'm founder and CEO of a company that's called the Brainy Business, and my work is in applied behavioral economics. Before starting the company and getting my master's in behavioral economics, my undergrad's in marketing, and I worked in marketing and brand strategy for quite some time before I found the field of behavioral economics and behavioral science. And when I did my undergrad, there was, like one section of one book in one class, like this little tiny sliver of buying psychology, like why people do the things they do, why they buy the things they buy. And I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. I was fascinated by it. And I had never really considered getting, further education at that point. I was, first generation college as it was for my undergrad and my family. But I was like, I'm going to go get a master's in this. This is awesome. So cool. And I spent 10 years about calling universities that said, like, that's not a thing. It's not a program. It doesn't exist. Like, sorry. Right. And so I went into industry and was working. I had worked in an advertising agency, had founded a different business, and then ended up working and running a marketing department at a financial institution. And while I was there, got introduced to some people from what's called the Center for Advanced Hindsight at Duke University, and that is their behavioral economics team. And they were talking about the work and the research that they were doing, and I realized that was, what I had been looking for. So they let me know it was called behavioral economics. I found myself a master's program, though there, were definitely not very many at that time, but at least I knew what to look for. And while there are more programs now, there are still, not as many as you would expect. It's not just like you get a degree in business or marketing, right? But there are more of them coming around. But as I was in that program, I knew I was early in the field because obviously I spent 10 years looking for it. But on the academic side, there was a lot that was established in research and things, but on that applied side of like how you use this in business, stuff that was so obvious to me about how it applies to internal communication with teams, into communicating with your customers, getting buy-in, having people excited, understanding loyalty and brand messaging, and ads, like just was nowhere. There was not information about this anywhere that I was looking. And so, and the work we were given through the program for research and things to read. And so I was starting a consultancy at that time anyway, full time, and met someone who had a very successful podcast through a friend. And she had said, I never ever recommend anyone start with a podcast or really do them at all because they're a lot of work. And you need to go do this thing yesterday, like go immediately. I've come to learn over the years, it's a lot of it is because I can make those academic concepts feel very like tangible, applicable, like you get how you would use it
Mhm.
for people. And so I rebranded my whole company and started the Brainy Business podcast in July of 2018 with the first 3 episodes and went weekly from there. And as far as then the vision of what I had for it. So my company at that point, it's like I'll just do freelance marketing, as a thing I can just do that sort of traditional marketing agency sort of work. And I figured though, as I was like layering in the behavioral stuff, that was kind of going to be secondary, at first. And I figured, it was a really hard, sales pitch, like to
Mhm.
go in and be like,
Something
hey,
new, people are
right,
unfamiliar
there's this
or
thing, it's called behavioral economics. You've never heard of it, but it's super important and you should hire someone to do that for you. And that person should be me, right? Like
Mhm.
that sucks. That's no fun.
That's scary.
Yeah. So I figured in starting the podcast, was things that I thought were interesting, where it's like, I'm going to do a whole episode about loss aversion or about scarcity or social proof and explain how they really work and why they matter, like the top 5 wording mistakes businesses make and why lead magnets matter when you consider, how the brain really works. And that as people are thinking about hiring me for that sort of work can say, oh yeah, I've got episodes if you want to learn more, like that it would be like a warm lead generator.
Yeah.
That I kind of saw that as, for like local little networking things that I would go to sort of deal, is that I figured people would get it because I would send it to them. And that was very much what I expected the world to be. And very quickly, we started having downloads all over the world. We have downloads in over 170 countries. We're at almost 1.5 million downloads of the show now. People just find it and reach out and use it. And so, as far as what I expected it to be,
It's more
no,
than that.
it was way bigger and amazing from that. But and so I'm very, honored and blessed that it's turned into what it is. And that's turned into, writing 3 books and doing a TEDx and teaching at Texas A&M University about behavioral science and doing consulting for global brands around the world and trainings. It's pretty awesome.
That is such an incredible experience. I love that it's all around like an educational pursuit of something that you really enjoyed. I think that's so unbelievably wonderful. I tell literally anyone that will listen that I would go to school forever if I had the ability to. And this is like the perfect place to do
Yeah.
that and do it for free.
Yeah.
Talking to people every day and being able to do this podcast is such a blessing in a similar way that I feel like you believe it is, in the idea that um I get to learn every day from doing this, and
Hmm.
other people get something out of it, and I think that knowledge should be free and available for everyone, especially if it's helpful, which I think it always is. So I think it's so wonderful that this is the foundation of what you do. I think it's something that I haven't seen before, and it's also something that you're giving back, as well as doing something that you're really interested in. So I just think this is incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is. I agree in being able to just learn new things all the time, right? And I have a good excuse in the podcast to be like forced to keep reading and doing things, right? So it's
Yeah.
easy to say, "Oh, I don't have the time." Like, "Oh, everybody has the stacks of books, that you want to read, or the papers and articles, and I still have plenty that I haven't gotten to. Don't you worry." Right. But when, it's like, hey, I'm talking to that author about their book tomorrow, or I have to look in, I'm talking to this academic researcher about their new study, like, need to make sure I've read it, right?
Mhm.
And that I'm ready to have that conversation. And where people like, then I get pitched, the transition that happened with the show of where actually I never planned to have guests ever, but then around 80 episodes in, that shift, sort of happened and I started to incorporate them. And now that's the bulk of what the show is interviews. But that process of people pitching me, like, from big publishing houses or like amazing people in their work, like, yeah, I want to talk to you. How cool is that? Right. And not having to go find, but, books just appear for me, which is super cool. And I get to read them, months before they actually come out to the world, which is super cool too.
It must be wonderful to be able to gain that much knowledge and it's just kind of being thrown at you. Like you get to talk to such wonderfully educated people, some very niche things that maybe you've never explored before, and you get to talk to like an expert on that thing. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, agreed. It is super awesome. And like I know if anybody's talking about motivation science, like, hey, I know a researcher that does that. Like, let's talk about that and I can
Yeah.
connect you to them. I also love connecting people that it's a good reciprocity principle that comes from behavioral science, right? Of always giving first and knowing it's going to come back. And like you were saying, and what you do here with the show of being able to give that knowledge out to people to help, use your platform to showcase other people's work and to shout it out on social media, whatever it is that you're doing, giving first and knowing that it comes back in the world.
So is there no, I definitely agree. I think it's something that is like I feel like not everyone gets the opportunity to be able to do that, especially on such a grand scale. Like to be able to not only learn every day, but also be able to share knowledge every day is something that's
Mm,
so incredible. I feel like you're usually in one position or the other most of the time, but to be able to do both is something that's so cool. And podcasting is something that can be so accessible now with how popular it is. And I think that
mhm.
that is such a great medium to be able to showcase that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's cool having evergreen content too. So people still find and listen to actively everything in the back catalog. And we, next month, episode 500 comes out of the
Oh,
Brainy Business
congratulations.
podcast. Thank you. So, and there's a lot in there, but knowing that, we get thousands of downloads a day of people going in and finding past content of something I talked about 6 years ago, like that's cool.
Is there so having decided to have guests at some point, what made you switch? Like is was it someone that you were really excited to talk to and they just convinced you that maybe this is a good idea? Or maybe did you get bored of talking to yourself?
Yeah, yeah, the thing about solo episodes, so knowing that, potentially with who's listening, if people are thinking about starting a podcast and whatever else, right? But like they are a lot of work. And if you do stuff with solo episodes, and so people will say all the time, like, you can have an amazing podcast in just 1 hour per month or, whatever, and you get all this
Mhm.
content. Like, so if you don't do any prep for anything and you don't really pay attention to it and you don't think about how much time it's going to take, it's probably not going to do very well. And it's like a waste of time, right? So whatever you want to do, whether that's being really invested in great social media, like you want to pick a platform for something,
Mhm.
and you're going to use Penji to create amazing art and use that team right for you to help really showcase you across all your social channels, right? You can go through that and just pick something and really dedicate the time to it. So when I did first start the podcast, I said, no matter what, I'm spending a year and it will be weekly. I will never miss. And I'm going to commit to this thing. And then I get to decide if it was worth it or not, if it's bringing enough into my business. And it was solo episodes. It's me talking, prep for those and recording and doing the research and everything. I was spending 8 to 10 hours a week on average just creating the show because
Mm.
it's me doing it, writing the scripts, getting them, recording them. And I used a separate editing team that was doing that's not editing, that's not me creating social stuff to share. That's just writing and researching them. And so, like, a ton of my time going into creating a solid show. And so, one reason that I continue to do interviews is because they do take less time, though I'm reading books. So it's a little bit more, it's more passive than,
Yeah, of
in
course.
the other way of research. So the reason though I made that transition was there was a key moment, like I said, around that 80th episode, where I got three different people that pitched me at the same time. And this was this like random, like, whoa, I'm getting some cool pitches. And so one of them was his name is Roger Dooley. He wrote a book called Friction. He writes for and another Brainfluence, and he's got Brainfluence podcast. He's super amazing, awesome. He actually ended up writing the foreword for my first book.
Oh.
Um, Nir Eyal, who wrote Hooked and Indistractable, who was also amazing, super awesome. Like I got a pitch for him to come talk about Indistractable. And then also Scott Miller, who at that time was EVP of thought leadership at Franklin Covey, that had a book coming out. And so these three pitches came in like the same week that they all came through. And I thought, I mean,
Sounds kind of fun.
feels like there's goodness in these conversations and good connections and things to be able to be made, and like why not try it out. And so originally I'd said it's like one interview a month, and then I have three, so it's like one interview, then 3 solo episodes, and then the next interview. And so I did that for a while. And then like more amazing opportunities are coming in for people to interview. And so I'm like, okay, every other one, or like within I could do 2 in a month, and that's
The
okay.
podcast process changes as
Yeah.
the demand and everything changes. I completely understand.
Yeah. And so the show has evolved over the years from all sorts of different things that I've changed, including we actually have 2 episodes a week now because we refresh an episode from the back catalog.
Oh.
And I do a new intro outro for it. But with 500 episodes, there's a lot of like, episode 127, like kind of is going to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
So you can refresh those and bring them back with a new light for them. And people are discovering them for the first time. And so, that's been, really valuable and a way to showcase past times where it's me as a solo full episode, or, interviews too. But yeah, it's been a fun journey. And I would say, for anybody that is thinking about what their business can be and what you're doing here, to know that have some goals in mind, of course, but be flexible with how you're going to get there, and don't get so stuck in the like, I've always done it this way and this is what people will expect, and so I can't change it. Like you can let go of some things, you can shift things, you can try something else, but if you never stop doing something or never try something new, you don't know how much better it could be, and what you could dedicate to those other things that could be even better than you ever thought.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I can 100% resonate with that exact concept, because we have changed around our podcast many times, like realizing for demand, or that we were maybe doing way too much, or that it was or our content calendar just didn't make sense for the time. And I think that it is something that you have to adjust to realize like what's the best fit, and it's a constant adjustment. Even if you think that it works out for a really long time, maybe at some point it doesn't, or you want to experiment. And I think that people shouldn't be afraid of doing that, because they might make someone angry or upset or whatever, because I mean it's your job. You're forming that to make you happy as well as your guests happy, but you have to consider that you don't want to get burned out from maybe doing too many episodes, or that your expectation on yourself is something that's too hard to deliver. And I think that especially in the agency world that I work in and navigate with so many people, I think that people are really susceptible to burnout, maybe even more than like the regular corporate business world, because they don't have a set schedule. They just kind of push themselves to work as much as they can because the work is never over.
Mm.
And I think that's something that's really difficult to fall into.
Well, and I mean, in that, entrepreneurship or small business space, which I'm, guessing is a lot of who uses Penji as you go through that, right? Like you have also that there are just so many options of what you can do in a business these days, right? And so there are so many social platforms that you feel like you have to be on because everyone else is there. And when they pop up, it's easy to say, well, we have to do that thing. And it's easy, our brains are wired to be able to see that optimism bias of what could be. And your brain is getting like chemicals that it likes when you can see into the future of the dream of like, when, oh my gosh, I can't, this is the point that I can't even remember what they were called when they popped up now, but there was so now I guess would be Threads I can use because that's
Yeah.
one I can remember the name of, right? But there was another one that was a community thing that came up before that. That was like the thing that's going to change the whole world. It was called like Campfire or something
I
along
think
those
I
lines. I
kind of
can't.
vaguely know what you're talking about. I'm really bad with new social media. I
Right.
think I'm actually scared for myself that I'm becoming like
I know it's
so
welcome
far
to
removed.
the oldies club here. But so like with Threads, right? And I know I was in the same thing. It's like, okay, this is the brand new thing and like whomever's going to be like I can now win on Threads and be like what so and so is to TikTok or what this person is on for YouTube or whatever. Like if you get in early and like are really there, you can like win and be the one that's going to get brand
Yeah,
deals or whatever
right on
else, right?
top. Hmm.
But I can't also let go of all these other things that I'm doing. And it's easy to just, kind of productively procrastinate on everything and never make enough progress. And there are so many like plates spinning, fires burning, whatever you want to say in small business. And you have to wear so many different hats of like the accounting side of things. And you're also having to be doing forecasting and you're having to be an expert in R&D if you're selling product and like social engagement and my goodness, like and sales and right, all the things. And so if you're trying all of that and then it feels like you can't stop being on Pinterest or whatever because or can't give up on posting to Threads every week because you've been there even though your 4 followers are going to be super bummed that you're not there anymore, even if it's sometimes 1,000 people that are there. It just if you have 1,000 in a bunch of spots and nobody's really engaging, you could really find one channel that resonates and focus better attention there by letting go of some stuff. It frees you up to do some amazing things and just don't worry about you tried something, it didn't work. Actually be done with it and move forward.
Yeah, I think that experimenting is something that's really important in this space. I don't think that people should be too afraid of it. Just because something doesn't work out, that's okay. I mean, like there's probably a too experimental, I'm sure, is to the point of risk. But I think that it's also something that you even said it before of like if you don't try something then you have no idea if it's going to be better than what you're doing now, even if what you're doing now seems to be working out. Like you don't know how much better it could be. If you're satisfied with that, I think it's also to know when you're satisfied and happy with where you're at is a good place to be as well, because I think that shouldn't be a worry of like where can I go next if what you're doing right now is good, because I think that's where people get burned out even if they're doing something that they love,
Yeah.
because that's like you need to know your boundaries too of like am I happy in this space, do I feel like I should be doing more because the expectation other people have on me, or because I truly think I could be doing better or more in this space. And that's a really difficult thing for people to navigate, especially if they have an entrepreneurial mindset or they're just a really hard worker. So if they feel like they can do more than they should, oftentimes.
Yeah. Well, and that's, advice I give to people because I have people reach out all the time and ask about, like, I'm thinking about doing something like writing a book, starting a podcast, starting like jumping out of my corporate job. Like, how did you do those things? And, what sort of advice do you have? And like, I think as you build whatever you're going to be doing, just be thinking about, if it's 5 years from now and you've made it, you're like living the dream, things are awesome, it's epic, you've done it. What does that look like for you? What are your days like? Are you working 7 days a week? Are you working into the night? Are you working, maybe it's 7 days a week, but you only work 4 hours a day, or maybe you can work remotely and be from anywhere? Do you have a team of people that you're managing, or do you not? Are you just making enough to pay bills and travel? Or like what is this thing that you're trying to do? And is your time spent having calls with people where you're working one-on-one? Are you leading group stuff? Are you doing work behind the scenes? Like, are you actually designing things, or are you never wanting to do that and you want to, or are you on social, like whatever it is, right? Like, what's the thing where you're like, yes, this is it, and I've made it, and my time is like that. Make sure whatever you're building and doing now is on the path to making that thing possible, right? There's more stuff you have to do in the beginning than what is going to be the dream for you. But if
Yes.
you're not building it for those things to be handed off to other people, whether it's people you hire or partners that you work with, or external stuff you hire out, if you're not building for that space, you're just never going to get there, because it's so easy to keep doing the same junk, every day, and things that aren't lighting you up, that you don't love to do. And that's where you get really burnt out and you don't want to keep doing it. And then things get into this really vicious cycle of you're not showing up and you don't do the work, and you don't love it, and people can tell and they don't want to work with you. And then your selling gets less confident, and like all these things, it just is a downward trajectory. Or maybe it's successful and you just hate it. And
some people are really good at something that they hate.
And that sucks. Don't do that, right? Like, especially if you start a business, I think you should at least like it, right? And enjoy doing that work, or it's in that built to sell, right? You know that you're ramping it up to sell it in 5 years, and that's good too, right? But know what it's going to do for you, and then find, partners as makes sense, or whatever that is. So that's like I said with the podcast, I've never done my own editing ever. And it's like, I could have figured it out. I have a background in marketing. I've done some stuff, with it. But when I was talking to other people with podcasts and things before I started it, and they would say, it's like, how long do you spend on the show? And they would say similar. It's like 6, 8, 10, 12 hours on creating the content. And they would say an equal amount of time. It was like, and then I spend 6, 8, 10, 12 hours editing my own thing, because I'm not really sure. I'm not an expert in this. And even then the editing quality wasn't great. And someone I was talking to once that told me that she spent 24 hours on a single episode because there was something she couldn't figure out and she was trying to do. And I said, well, that's a hard pass, right? Like and it's not that, you have to pay to have a good editor or whatever, but it's not as expensive as you would think. And if it's an investment in, the business, and in my case, the podcast was really top of the funnel, it was worth having. And let me tell you, bad audio quality is not a good growth trajectory for a podcast.
Yeah, people like the quality. They're definitely, there's only so much you can edit.
Yeah, you don't have to invest in everything, but there are some things that it's worth doing, like buying the microphone. But like I've had the same microphone the whole time, and it's less than $100, right? And I've used it for 5 years. So, and people compliment my audio quality all the time. So
you have great audio quality.
Thank you.
It's fantastic audio quality. So
amazing.
You do great ASMR.
Yes. Ooh, I won't though.
You should have an
I can't
ASMR
even pretend.
episode.
Oh, well. I could have and it's like behavioral economics and behavioral science of ASMR. Like, why does anyone like this?
You don't
maybe
even
that'll
have
be a
to
new
give me
episode.
credit for that. You should just do it. I think I would love to watch it.
Love it. All right, we'll put it in the queue. It'll happen.
I'll write a research paper about it and prepare it for you in advance, and then we can.
Amazing. That sounds great. Let's do it.
Well, we're grossly over time, but in like the best way ever. Of that, this went by so fast that I just realized that we were. But I do so much appreciate this. I thought this was so fun, and it was such a new topic that I got to talk about, which is my favorite thing to do ever, because I love learning. So thank you so much for talking about it. And I apologize that we kind of more talked about podcasting than maybe the whole conglomerate of your company, but I also think that was really exciting.
Yeah, well, no worries. And not sure if this is kind of, it's often a next question or whatever, but for people that do want to learn more about what the Brainy Business is and does and the type of content and that I work on, just go to thebrainybusiness.com. We have information on the podcast, my books, consulting, speaking. You can sign up for our newsletter to get regular tips from me. Like you, love to be helping others to learn and grow in all types of businesses. And we share a lot of content to help you do that.
Please do. And that'll also be in the description. So check that out as well. You can easily get there. Thank you so much again, Melina, for joining me today. This is absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing a new world to me. I'm really excited to get more involved in it. And I love the access to knowledge that you're providing. It's something that I really love. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, everyone listening. Have a good day.